Yes, you're beautiful. And yes, you're blind. Yes, you hold treasures within you. Open them. Make it happen. Make it possible. Go with the cycles of the weather. Go with the cycles of the earth.
After what has been a life-changing 6-year journey, that has taken me across the Balkans, to Budapest, and even as far as Moscow, I find myself in the middle of the Indian Ocean, in a place which Mark Twain visited in 1896 and called paradise. This island is Mauritius. And my name is Dean Thomas. I was born in April 1966 and raised in the city of Bristol to a regular working-class family. Bristol is renowned for its engineering achievements, excellence and reputation. Isambard Kingdom Brunel designed the first suspension bridge, which was opened in 1864 after 33 years of construction. Brunel led the Industrial Revolution with his engineering mind, designing the first transatlantic steamships, railway lines and tunnels. His engineering feats transformed Britain at the time. During my childhood, I remember the return of Brunel's SS Great Britain to Bristol. It was an incredible image to see her floating under the Clifton Suspension Bridge, a true honor to the creator of both icons. Modern-day Bristol saw Concorde built and tested in a collaboration with the French. As a child, I would often hear strange booms during the day, and later learned that this was Concorde entering supersonic speed. Unfortunately, Bristol has a far more sinister history, one involving the slave trade, which lasted for centuries. Goods made in Bristol were shipped to Northwest Africa, and on arrival in Angola or Nigeria, they were traded for a new cargo destined for the Caribbean islands. This new cargo, in most cases, were native Africans being taken to their new destiny, enslavement in the British colonies of the Caribbean. Bristol's economy was intrinsically linked to slave-produced Caribbean goods, such as sugar, rum, indigo, and cocoa. Today we know this as the Triangle Trade, and it was controlled by a small group of elite businessmen. These historical facts have only come to the surface during my recent life. My childhood is full of pleasant memories, despite a rigid upbringing. I was always keen to explore and discover the outside world. Climbing trees, picking fruits, feeding animals, and enjoying nature. But I was forever breaking the rules set by my parents. I would often spend evenings in my room waiting for my father to return home from work, when I would be judged and given the most appropriate punishment. My fondest memories are with my grandfather, Ivor. Grandad was a hard-working man whose history included serving in the Royal Navy during the Second World War. He also worked on the docks at Avonmouth, where he was responsible for loading and unloading ship's cargo. He lived with my grandmother Peggy, a short distance from my home, and their home was my sanctuary, and often a place I ran to when I got into trouble at my home. I remember Grandad always encouraged me to be myself and explore my imagination. He would often take me to groom his horses and feed his birds. As a young boy, I was often riding his horse Storm at gymkhanas and other events. This was my escape from being at my home. I really was quite rebellious at school and only passed one exam in English literature. But I was free to leave school at the age of 16. After leaving school, I began my first full-time job as a messenger boy on Avonmouth docks. I had fallen into the trap of family legacies, following in the footsteps of my grandfather, father, and uncles, who all worked at the Port of Bristol. I could not really handle the strict rules and regulations, or the cycling 20 miles a day in all weathers. After 12 months, I decided to find my own way and leave. I was forever being hired or fired, but at the same time amassing a tremendous amount of information and wisdom. I was learning how to become my own person in a world full of conformity, judgment, and standards. I was not afraid to take risks or break the rules, always following my intuition and sense of direction. Perhaps this is the foundation for the life I am enjoying today. In the early 1990s, I decided to leave the UK and explore the Côte d'Azur. I had fond memories of my teenage days holidaying with my family in France. Shortly after arriving at a campsite in Mandelieu, I heard a radio advertisement for a steward on a yacht based in Monaco. I had some experience working in the hospitality business and felt I had all the skills to do the job. I arrived in Monaco and was immersed in a whole new world, home of the elite and their toys. I found the yacht and had an interview with the captain, but he was reluctant to hire a man. His ideal candidate was a woman, due to the daily routine involving cleaning and other domestic chores. I asked him to give me a chance, and after a few hours he called me to start the next day. I packed my things and left for Monaco. After 2 days, the captain announced we were departing for Saint-Tropez and would spend the summer there with the owners. The fact that I was working on a multi-billionaire's yacht was a complete shock to my system, but at the same time, I was very excited. It really was a completely different way of living and being. On board, the yacht was like a 5-star hotel, but with luxury I have not experienced since. After a few months serving the owners and their guests, I had a completely new perspective on how the mega-rich lived. I learned that no matter the amount of money we have in our pockets, we are all human beings. The owner himself gave me some advice which I still remember today. One evening while sitting on the aft deck, he told me to always follow my dreams, no matter where they led. It was that experience that led me to another yachting destination, New Zealand. In 1996, I decided to sit for my captain's papers, and after a few months of theory and practical exams, I had earned my captain's ticket. Shortly after this, I decided to explore opportunities. Again, I followed my intuition and took a one-way flight to Australia. After a few weeks, I met a wonderful woman called Manuela during a walk in a park. She immediately impacted my life, and we began to live together in Sydney with her 2 children, Juliana and Vlatko. In December 1997, my first daughter, Jessie D, was born in Canberra, Australia. We became nomadic. Manuela's home was in Vukovar, Croatia, but she fled the country during the 1990s Balkans conflict. In 1998, I became acquainted with her family and Vukovar. It was 6 years after the war had ended, but the destruction was still clearly evident. It was not the right place or time for us to settle, so we decided to move to South Wales. We became semi-settled in 2000, and then my second daughter, Amy, was born in September 2002. Amy blessed our semi-rural life in the valleys of South Wales, but in 2006, it was time for another move. Back to Vukovar, in Croatia. We bought a family home, and for a few years things were relatively stable. In July 2007, my son Dylan was born, and this was the turning point in all of our lives. In early 2008, I made the decision to relocate to Barcelona. Living in Vukovar became intolerable for me. I took my son and daughters with me, and we set up a small family home. My kids loved living in a modern city, and we fully adapted to living in Spain. As a family, we grew stronger, and with regular visits with their siblings and mother, life was rosy. It was in February 2011 when I was headhunted and offered the position as CEO for a company in Moscow. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When would you want me to go if I needed to go? April. It's going to take some work to do, you know. That's something for me to think about. I'll talk to Jesse and Amy and see what they say and then let you know in a couple of days. But Moscow's a big move, man, you know that. Okay. Take care. Call me in a couple of days. Okay, bye. After receiving the call, I was reluctant to upset the life I had built with my children. Guess what? I've just been offered a job in Moscow. And I've told Ricardo that I'll talk to you girls first and let him know in a couple of days. What do you think?
Daddy, you should go to Moscow. Don't worry about us, we'll be okay. It is the chance of your life, so please say yes.
Okay. We'll talk to Amy in the morning. It was my eldest, Jessie D, who encouraged me to go to Moscow. This is not the first time that Jessie convinced me to do something. April the 17th, 2011, I arrived in Moscow, not knowing what to expect or even the location of the offices. Within a few weeks, I had fallen in love with yet another incredible woman, Alexandra, and her then 3-year-old son, Ilya. It was an amazing unfolding of a new job, new partner, and new family. But as usual, within a few short months, things became complicated. In early 2012, the company decided to relocate me to Tel Aviv. By the end of 2012, I had managed to find a new job based in Budapest, Hungary, and set up a family home with Alexandra and Ilya. It was in July 2014, during a school event with Alexandra and Ilya, where I was introduced to Tomislav Tesla, the great-great-nephew of Nikola Tesla. But by the end of August 2014, Amy and Dylan were in Australia, Alexandra and Ilya in Moscow, and me now in Vukovar with Jessie. At that time, my life completely fell apart. It took a lot of restraint not to end my life. I felt that I had lost everything important to me. It felt as if everything had been ripped out of my body, and it was so hard to see a future without those I loved. But I had to remain intact to ensure that Jessie had a home and future. I wrote a book called Love Outside the Box that attempted to break down the way we perceive love and how we become attached to certain things that have been programmed by others. I had completely forgotten about Tomislav Tesla until one day in early 2018, there was a knock on my front door.
Bravo Tomo, kako si? Evo, Milo, ti?
Nismo se dugo vidjeli.
Da, ima neko vreme.
Eto, kako je posao, kako ti, kako zdravlje.
I listened for hours about the latest events and things in Tomislav's life. And I realized that there must be a bigger reason for him returning. It was at this moment I began to create the framework to further the technology of Tomislav Tesla. Nikola Tesla was born in a village called Smijan in today's Republic of Croatia. Nikola's father was a devout Orthodox priest who wished his son to follow the priesthood. His mother, on the other hand, was an innovator herself. Often she would make things for Nikola to expand his passion for innovation. She encouraged him to use his imagination while she made new tools for the home. During his childhood, Nikola was free to explore nature with his siblings, including playing in the stream close to his home. Nikola was a very adventurous child and attended many schools around the region. His passion was to study engineering, much to the disfavor of his father. It was in 1873, when Nikola contracted cholera, that his father finally relented. Promising his son that if he recovered from his illness, he would allow him to go to university in Austria. After avoiding national service by hiding in the mountains, it was in 1875 that Nikola enrolled at the Austrian Polytechnic in Graz. Although he began achieving great marks in his first year, gradually he became bored and lost interest in studying. He would often be found gambling in local pubs. It was in 1881 that he arrived in Budapest, thanks to his uncle Pavle. Here he found work at the Central Telephone Exchange and managed to make the system fully operational within a few months. He was appointed as chief electrician, but shortly afterwards began to have a mental breakdown. It was his infatuation with alternating current that had caused yet another near-death experience. In February 1882, during a walk in the city park with his close friend Anthony Szigeti, he had a moment of inspiration. While reciting Goethe's Faust, he began to draw on the path with a stick. It was the solution to alternating current that would take another 6 years to fully master. Finally, he knew the answer to all his questions and would begin his quest to create the AC motor. Later in 1882, Nikola set off for Paris and began working at an Edison lighting factory at Ivry-sur-Seine. managed to repair and improve many of the DC systems he encountered. Even managed to prove his own alternative concept, but no one really understood the value of it. In 1884, Nikola managed to convince his uncles to finance his next trip to America. And on the 6th of June 1884, Nikola arrived in New York. It seems he was always surrounded by some sort of controversy. His trip by sea was no different. There was a mutiny on board that resulted in Nikola losing most of his possessions, which left him in New York, broke and homeless. Fortunately, he had a letter addressed to Thomas Edison, recommending him for a position in the company. His first project with Edison was to repair the electrics on board the ocean liner Oregon. After successfully repairing the alternators, Nikola had impressed Edison. Despite many efforts to convince Edison of his new alternating current, his ideas fell on deaf ears. It was on May the 10th, 1887, his long-standing friend Anthony Szigeti joined Tesla in New York. By that time, Nikola had formed Tesla Electric Company. His trusted friend Anthony joined him at the Liberty Street Laboratory as his assistant. On the 16th of May, 1888, patent in hand, Nikola delivered a powerful speech at the American Institute of Engineers at Columbia University. At this time, Nikola had reached the attention of other industrialists, including George Westinghouse. And it was in July 1888 that Westinghouse acquired the patent rights to Tesla's AC motor. Tesla continued his quest to explore high frequencies and lighting. He created the first X-ray images in November 1890, but became obsessed with the transmission of energy through the air. In the same year, Nikola forfeited the royalty rights to his induction motor agreement with Westinghouse. Whether this was an intentional tactic of Westinghouse, we will never know. Nikola continued to play with high-frequency energy and spent many hours in his laboratory experimenting with new gadgets to improve the lives of others. Nikola's induction motor went on to be installed at Ames power plant in 1891, another first at the time. The polyphase system went on to set the benchmark for energy transmission at that time. Nikola Tesla was a receiver of information. His mind was open to the ways of the world, and he knew how his wisdom could benefit humanity. He was also interested in Eastern philosophies and exploring the etheric field. Swami Vivekananda was perhaps one of the most well-respected gurus of the time. In 1893, Vivekananda was asked to speak at the World's Parliament of Religions.
Sisters and brothers of America, it fills my heart with joy unspeakable to rise in response to the warm and cordial welcome which you have given us.
Here he introduced Hinduism to America and called for religious tolerance and an end to fanaticism. It is during this event where Nikola and Vivekananda had the pleasure of meeting.
I want to give them dry, hard reason, softened with the sweetest syrup of love, and made spicy with intense work, and cooked in the kitchen of yoga, so that even babies can easily digest it.
They spent many great moments discussing Buddhism, prana, and the Akasha. Together they also touched on the universal patterns and the cycles of nature, as well as the need for the West to be open to the ideas of Veda. It was in the same year Westinghouse was awarded the contract to install a hydropower system at Niagara Falls. It was in 1896 that Nikola Tesla's invention achieved notoriety. It began to transmit electricity to Buffalo, 22 miles from the power station. He had realized the childhood vision of harnessing Niagara Falls with his ideas. Nikola Tesla shall be remembered for many inventions that he created, and ones that we still use today. He created wireless technology, radio waves, and even telephony. All of these things form part of his wish to help people live a better life. He was not focused on profiteering from his ideas, and invested all of his earnings in his ideas and way of life. He always wished for peace and unity among all the nations of the Balkans. At the time of his death, he was penniless and in debt. But there is no doubt that Nikola Tesla lived a very full and affluent life. Today we shall acknowledge all that he created, how he brought us light and truly transformed the way billions of people live. He lived his life creating magic for all of humanity to benefit. Yet history shows us how only a few have truly gained from his work. In July 2018, I found myself again in Moscow. I was presenting Tomislav's new hydropower technology at a blockchain conference. After my first presentation, a well-dressed man from the Embassy of Mauritius in Moscow approached me. He asked me to come to Mauritius and help the country. I laughed and said, of course I will. We agreed to meet again for dinner so we could discuss the practicalities of his wish. On returning to Croatia, I called a meeting with my colleagues, and it was at this point that I asked Tomislav to trust me and give me the rights to develop his technology. A few days later, I had a message from the Embassy of Mauritius in Moscow, inviting me to attend a conference hosted by the ambassador and the EDB. It was at that conference I realized that there was a potential in Mauritius, but I had to find my own way and means to get there. That was the beginning of a much bigger relationship with Roy and now Mauritius. In May 2020, I received news that Tomislav's technology had been accepted as a pilot project for connection to the energy grid of Mauritius. At the same time, I began to uncover the story of electricity and the role of one man in particular, Ahmad Ibrahim Acha. I could see many interesting threads between Tesla, the Major, and the island, and now my own life. There is no doubt in my mind that stories of Mauritius reached Tesla. Thanks to his good friend Mark Twain, who wrote about his encounter and called Mauritius paradise. By this time, I decided to try and locate any descendants of the Major. I sent a message to my good friend Adam to see if he could connect me with the family. After a couple of hours of patiently waiting, I received a reply from Adam. He's arranged for me to meet with the Acha family. thank you for inviting us to your home today.
You are most welcome to the Acha families.
Allow me to introduce Mr. David Abising, our Director of True Tesla Technologies in Mauritius, and Pascaline Rita, our Events Coordinator in Mauritius.
So Dean, this is Adil. He's the manager of the Mazracha Waqaf. You know, in the Islamic law, a Waqaf is a trust. That is a trust of Mazracha.
Perfect, there's something new I've learned today.
Tu nous capable de montrer zot manœuvre de Mazracha?
Let's go. We'll show you some of Major's work.
Perfect, thank you.
Now we'll meet Major's sons.
Hello, my name is Dean Thomas. You are the son of Major Ibrahim Acha. It's a pleasure to meet with you.
My father is Ahmad Ibrahim Acha, also lovingly remembered as Mazo. And you know, my grandfather Ibrahim Suleiman Acha came from the village of Barbodan in the region of Gujarat, India. He set sail on board the ship Kirkland in December 1860.
हमें जायचे मॉरिशस माथी इंशाल्लाह
And arrived in Mauritius in January 1861. He was 20 years old at that time. And very soon settled in Belrose after marrying a local Mauritian lady. Mazo was born in 25th of May 1868 at Belrose. As a child, he had a lot of freedom to explore nature. He spent a great deal of time playing in the stream at the back of our family home and had grand ideas that became realities throughout his life. Mazo did not have any formal education, but with the help of his brothers, he began to place his mark in Rosehill and Beaubassin. After the cyclone of 1892, they rebuilt a mosque in Rosehill using ideas of my father. He invented prefabricated concrete, which went on to build many homes, as well as the steps to Redwi power station that still remain today. A process which began in 1890s when the then governor sold land to the Acha brothers and agreed for a power station to be built. Together, they created Mauritius Hydropower Company and began to construct the first hydropower station in Mauritius in 1900. It was a mammoth engineering task at that time, as there was no machinery to help. Everything was worked by hand in the most dangerous conditions, including the landing of dynamite to make the power station itself. It was not unusual to see men jumping in and out of the water to climb the rock face and place dynamite to create the final site.
Nous avons fait un travail bien difficile, mais nous avons bien fait.
Mon travail, pas tracas, nous pouvons s'y faire.
Inch'Allah.
Amin.
Mais mon travail, quand nous finissons de faire les affaires, mais comment vous descendre ça va une gros machine là?
Pour ça, nous pouvons bien arranger un téléphone.
With his brothers, they built a telepheric line which allowed the heavy machinery to be lowered to the power station and provide a river crossing. Electricity was even supplied to the governor's house and then street lighting in Rosehill and Beaubassin. My father continued his work with the community through his creation of cinema, merry-go-rounds, and even football matches played under floodlights. He brought electric light to the streets of Mauritius way before London. It is his genius that was acknowledged every day on his work to and from his office. He worked long and hard, leaving home as early as 7 a.m. each day and returning late in the evening. Our family home was always welcoming fellow countrymen, including the great Mahatma Gandhi, who, like my father, was from the same region of Gujarat. It was on a train journey home in September 1947 that the Mazo suddenly passed away after suffering a heart attack.
Wow, what an incredible story that was. You know, David, we learned a great deal from Chacha yesterday. Today, it's time for Michael Acha. It's a pleasure to meet you, Michael. Thank you for taking time out of your day. I'm digging into the life of the Major, and I'm finding some interesting things, but I'm sure you have some special things to tell us.
Oh, many things to say. When I was a child, 7, 8 years old, my father, who was the son of Major Acha, told me, "My son, tonight I'd like you to sleep in that bed." We were in the old house in La Rue Vendée-Amèche in Rosehill, the old family house. I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, sleep in this tonight." I did. Next morning, I said, "But, Papa, why did you ask?" He said, "Did you know Gandhi slept in that bed?" Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi, later to be known as Mahatma Gandhi. Because when he came to Mauritius, unknown to the rest of the world, people didn't, especially the oligarchy, didn't receive him very well at all. They call him in Creole foutier des ordres, right? But some people, including people from Gujarat, my grandfather and others, looked after him, staying with them. And he slept in that bed, so had the honor of sleeping in the bed of Gandhi. My grandfather, I admire him very much. I knew him when I was small. For the things he's done, not just hydroelectricity, because I'm an environmentalist, I'm a well-known environmentalist. Use of solar energy, use of wind energy. For example, he had a salt pan. He didn't use a little electric motor to bring salt, wind. My grandfather started making prefabricated concrete in 1907. Wow. 1907. That's what you call initiative, innovation. And he made plaques. He had a bit of a thing about his own name. It was called Ahmad Ibrahim Acha. So all his plaques, he had a bull which he put AIA, like Tottenham Football Club today. AIA. So AIA was everywhere, and they still exist. It was such good concrete that these things, these plaques, these steps still exist today. If you go to the hydroelectric power station of Réduit in Mauritius, as you climb the steps, after some time you say EIA, 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 EIA as you go up the stairs. The question I ask myself, Dean, is, does innovation, is it inherited? Does it go across generation? Because I feel one of the main things I've done in life sometimes is, it didn't bring me any money and hardly any fame, is invent things, discover things. Wow, in 75 I invented graphics for computer. And my professor said, Michael, when publish it, and I published it. And thousands of people worked on that. If you look at your TV or your computer or your smartphone, 80% of things are graphics. That was the origin of that. Small things you do in life with the feeling that you want to do something new, different. That's the feeling I think drove my grandfather. Beyond doing all those things I mentioned, he went into entertainment. Series of 9 different cinemas, which is why, by the way, I know all the Indian films very well, because I used to see all those films. And imported those films. At the time, those reels of films. You had to import and buy a set and give entertainment to people. And so on and so on and so on. He died not a rich man, which I'm proud of. He didn't use his money, Bill Gates type, to make tremendous amount of money. He did not. He did something as a service, and off it went.
Michael, that was really incredible. If you had one word to describe your grandfather, what would it be?
I'll use, with humility, the word genius.
I have learned how the Acha family began their journey to Mauritius and arrived as traders from India. They had an opportunity to create a prosperous business at the time. But what about the other immigrants arriving in Mauritius? They also had the same dreams and wishes, but how did their lives fare? Hundreds of thousands of naive Indians were convinced Mauritius would allow them to live a better and more prosperous life. Unfortunately, this was not the case, and most of them were treated as second-rate citizens. They really had no opportunity to create the life they wished for. Indentured laborers were kept in extreme conditions and relative poverty. I can see how they were told a story that was simply a ruse to bring much-needed labor to the island.
कितना और समय यहाँ पे रह के भैया?
सरदार बोलत बा के एक और दिन बा रहे के। एगो साहब से मिलल बा और उता गिरमिट के बात करत छा।
वही साहेब जिनका हमार चिकित्सा करे रहल?
नहीं, एगो दूसर बा। कहाँ जिनको नाम बतैले बा। फिर का? जाब सा काम करे।
संगे वे जाब सना भैया। हई अनजान मारिज में हमके डर लागे।
खा जने बहन, मन छोटा ना करिया। काम करे के आलसा, काम करे के परे।
It was time to visit the former governor's residence, to witness the scale of the project the Major and his brothers accomplished. There is so much more to the story of Mauritius that I also need to discover and experience for myself. One that required another walk, this time to Le Morne.
Bons enfants, vous connaissez que nous étions là? Nous dans le monde Brabant. Ce site-là fait inscrire comme patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO en 2008. Ici, les Pasis représentent l'héritage culturel du pays, mais il est aussi un symbole pour la lutte pour la liberté. Et surtout, refuse soumettre à sa crime contre l'humanité qui appelle l'esclavage.
Lève-les. Tu connais qui est passé ici.
Toi, tu as faim?
Moi, j'ai faim, toi.
Ouais, moi, j'ai extra faim à moi.
Moi, pour marron, moi, pour aller là.
Qui te gagne? Tu peux sauver après, ben, là, bizarre, revient route encore. Tu peux bizarre retourner là.
Tu ferais pas aller, oui?
Laisse-le, toi. Reste tranquille, ben, là, tu venir là, hein? Tu fais une manière de parler là, hein?
Qui c'est pour faire nous encore là?
Ça cause que tu mets des noix ça. So dis-le pas ça là. Que t'es là. À cause de toi. Ou qui n'a veut suivre moi.
Allez, lève-toi. Non, allez. Luna! Dégage-toi.
Totifi a bien progressé avec nos langues. Moten sur la voix.
Et une bonne nouvelle pour Zot. Zot libre.
Libre?
Zot libre.
Ce pétien nous libre.
Zot libre. Zot libre. Allez.
Non, allez.
Besoin annonce, Balmaron là aussi.
Hey! Zot libre! Oh!
Toi, tu peux venir en bête nous. On préfère mort. Je peux revenir. De bizarre aller.
Quand nous pouvons aller?
Mon plaît, moi.
Libéré. Mon frère. Attends-moi là, hein? Je vais venir là.
Bon Dieu, pardonne-moi.
Libre! Comment on a été?
I can see the message of those that chose to end their lives. After decades of abuse and promises, they simply did not believe or trust the word of the landowners who told them they were free. Many did not understand what they were told, and with hindsight, the act of ending their lives is a reminder of the truth. But how do all these experiences contribute to my life and future projects? I can see the parallel lives of Nikola Tesla and the Major Ahmad Ibrahim Acha. Unlike Nikola, who never had any direct descendants, the Major has a large family. His son, who shares the same name, but known to his family as Bahim, is 98 years old. I had the pleasure of celebrating that birthday with his family at their home. The Major also has a daughter, Rahel Bibi, who is living in London. She is known to her family as Nali and is 96 years old. There is an extensive family living all over the world, which continues to honor the Major's work. I can see the creations of two men, which transformed the lives of billions of people. I can also see the parallels to my life and the work that I am doing today, as well as its purpose. With a wealth of information, knowledge, and life lessons, I know that the project Tomislav Tesla and I are undertaking in Mauritius is the beginning. Utilizing a new means to generate electricity in harmony with Mother Nature. Harnessing nature's resources, not exploiting them. Introducing new ideas on how to give Mother Nature a helping hand in transforming the planet. One which we can all enjoy for centuries ahead. I have been fortunate to walk the path of many great and famous people, yet I can only aspire to my own vision of the future. It is quite ironic. Mauritius found me, and somehow convinced me to visit, and now I too have discovered paradise. I also have a vision that is becoming a reality today. A vision which will create electricity for those that need it. A passion to work with nature and show others how they too can create anything for themselves. To share technologies that will enhance and improve the lives of millions and probably billions of people over time. I will remember from where I have come, the walks I have taken, the knowledge I have gleaned, and the wisdom I have derived. For it is all of that experience that is the truth and serves me today. I know the path that I am on and the direction it is heading. I realize that life is really very beautiful, dynamic, and fluid, only when we break the chains that bind us. No matter what transpires, this is the beginning. A new cycle of change and transformation that will ripple across the world. I also know that home is a state of being, not a destination. And home is where the magic truly begins. I wonder which part of the cycle you are playing. After all, it is the circle of life.